In 1987, two of the biggest musical acts in different genres would cross paths and almost perform together on stage. It was during this year Bon Jovi was on tour for their third record, 1986's Slippery When Wet. The album came out in August of '86, and nearly a year later, in September, the band was booked to play 7 consecutive nights at the Budoken in Japan from September 24th to the 30th. The arena held between 15,000 to 20,000 people. Slippery When Wet was a record that catapulted the band into the stratosphere, going diamond in the States, selling over 12 million copies. Just for comparison, the band's previous record sold about 1 million copies. During their tour, Bon Jovi happened to be staying at the same hotel as the king of pop, Michael Jackson. Jackson was in town to play 3 nights at a nearby stadium to over 135,000 fans. Jackson's party occupied the top floor while Bon Jovi were staying 1 floor below. Bon Jovi had just finished up a tour of Australia where they had to don disguises to get away from screaming fans and the press. But unbeknownst to them at the time, Jackson had to deal with the same issues dating back to his days in the Jackson 5. Bon Jovi's members would receive a call from Jackson's manager during the day of September 24th, asking if they wanted to meet the King of Pop, which they gladly accepted. John Bon Jovi would recall upon entering Jackson's suite, the room had been ripped to shreds and redecorated. They put up mirrors against the wall so Jackson could practice his dancing, and a wooden dance floor in there. And they took over a wing of the hotel. Needless to say, spending money was not really an issue. Upon entering Jackson's suite, the King of Pop wasn't there, so the band opted to sit and wait for him to show up. Jackson would finally enter all decked out in his bad tour wardrobe, and John would recall, when he entered the room, your eyes sort of had to focus again. The members made some small talk with the King of Pop, who they tried to convince to come out and party with them, but he opted to stay in his suite, rest his voice, and practice his dance moves for an upcoming show. That's how focused Michael Jackson was. It's been insinuated by Louder Sound that at some point during the conversation, the musicians talked about playing live with each other. At one point, Jackson agreed to join Bon Jovi on stage for their final song at their last Budokan show on September 30th. Jackson had no show that day, so the timing seemed perfect. So the day of the show comes, and it's September 30th, and an hour before the show, Bon Jovi's camp gets word that Jackson is not able to join the band on stage. Now this is where there's 2 versions of events. One is based on a book called Michael Jackson Incorporated, The Rise, Fall, and Rebirth of a Billion-Dollar Empire from 2014. As the band headed down to continue their party at a nearby venue on September 24th, they were surprised when Jackson's chimpanzee Bubbles showed up in a limo and reportedly even danced with the party and shared a drink with the members of the band. Bubbles would be born in Texas in 1983 at an animal research facility that bred primates to do testing on them. It's not entirely clear how Jackson got the chimpanzee, but it's speculated he paid for it, and it soon started living with him when he was 8 months old. Bon Jovi would remember what happened next, stating, "We proceeded to get very drunk, have a bunch of water fights, knock on doors, typical classic rock star things to do in the 80s, and we blamed it all on Bubbles." Then there's a slightly different story. The one is based on the 2003 book Starman, the right-hand man of rock and roll. The book would be written by Bon Jovi's then head of security and rock writer Paul Elliott. Upon learning that Jackson wouldn't be making the September 30th concert, the members were a little annoyed, so they concocted a plan to get back at the King of Pop. There would be an after party for the band at the Lexington Queen nightclub, and after having some drinks, the members of Bon Jovi placed a call to Jackson's trainer, who happened to be in charge of looking after Bubbles. They would tell Jackson's trainer that John Bon Jovi wanted to say hi to Bubbles, and his trainer, being a huge fan of the band, even attending one of the recent Japan gigs, was more than happy to oblige. When a knock was heard at Jackson's personal trainer's hotel room, he opened the door to see drummer Tico Torres and the band's head of security. They would tell Bubbles' caretaker that they would take the chimpanzee down to the hotel bar to meet John. Soon enough, Jackson's trainer received a call that if he wants Bubbles back, the King of Pop has to come to the hotel bar to retrieve him. Bon Jovi's head of security would write in his book, "In the bar we place Bubbles in an armchair. He's a friendly little fellow and a star in his own right. Clad in a red and gray striped romper suit, he accepts bananas from us, which we order with our drinks. For 2 hours we are expecting a visit from Jackson's security staff, but nobody comes. Eventually, we come to the conclusion that Jackson's personal trainer is too scared to let anyone know that Bubbles has been abducted. So we are stuck with him, or to be more specific, I'm stuck with him." 3 hours later, Bon Jovi's head of security takes Bubbles to his hotel room where he hangs out with him. He soon realizes they should probably return him to Jackson's security detail outside the pop star's room, which he does. He would write in his book, "They shake their heads in disbelief, with Bubbles waddling at my side, his hands in mine. Don't ask," I say sleepily, patting my little friend on the head and walking quickly away before any questions can be asked. As for Bubbles, during that trip to Japan, Jackson would make a social visit to the mayor of Osaka, where the chimpanzee drank green tea. The mayor's office were surprised to see the chimpanzee, but understood he was Jackson's good friend. However, Bubbles was not allowed to enter Britain or Sweden due to their strict laws regarding animals from other countries. Bubbles' life with Jackson was pretty wild. The chimpanzee apparently slept in a crib in the King of Pop's bedroom, frequently ate candy in the Neverland movie theater, and ate with the King of Pop at his dining table, in addition to using his toilet. One of the strangest things to come out of the Jackson 2005 trial was that Bubbles apparently helped out with chores around the home, dusting blinds. While some of Jackson's friends didn't mind Bubbles, others weren't such big fans. It was said that Queen frontman Freddie Mercury wasn't happy that the chimp was in the recording studio while him and Jackson worked on the tune "There Must Be More to Life Than This." According to author David Wigg, who would write, "Michael made Bubbles sit between them and would turn to the chimp between takes and ask, 'Don't you think that was lovely?' or 'Do you think we should do that again?' After a few days of this, Freddie just exploded, 'I'm not performing with a f***ing chimp sitting next to me each night.' Mercury would release the song in 1985 as part of his solo album, and the version he cut with Jackson would be released in 2014 on the record Queen Forever. Jackson would give up Bubbles in 2003 after there were fears of him becoming too aggressive against his newborn son, Prince Michael II. Bubbles is still alive today and, well, living in Florida on an animal sanctuary, spending most of his time sitting in trees. Jackson, during his time with Bubbles, received much criticism for housing a wild animal. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories, and if you have suggestions for future topics, use the link in the description box below. See ya.